Hey, what's up? This is Trey Pierce, audio engineer,
digital director,
director of financial planning and analysis,
senior creative director of A&R,
program director, morning show host,
and you're listening to the Springboard
Music Podcast. But I think the biggest thing is something that not a lot of people might say, but being empathetic. I think that so much of what I do on the day-to-day in the digital marketing space is thinking about how people are going to react.
Okay, this episode is one that we initially launched in February 2023 with our big release of the podcast, and it had so many positive reviews, but unfortunately we had to take it down. We have taken several months to re-record, edit, and go through this to make sure that we could deliver this incredible insight to you. Shannon Woodworth is a fantastic maverick in her space as a career woman. She's also a mom, a social media influencer. So this interview talks about boundaries, trending things in the social media space, and it will not disappoint. Without further ado, give it up for Shannon Woodworth. I feel like you're crushing it. I'm so no, but I know, right? Now the roles are reversed and you're like, no. But seriously, like I thought about this a lot when I worked at a label. Like I don't know how I could have kept up that pace of life and not only been a wife, because I think I use the analogy today of I felt like our marriage cosmetically, if you think of it as a house, looked awesome. But it's like we neglected to pay for insect control. And so termites got in and it was deteriorating the like foundation, but like you wouldn't know it. And it looked great unless something like one thing tipped and it all came crumbling down. Like I just like not only being a wife and like prioritizing that relationship and not even just a wife, but like a life partner and being in a committed relationship and then also being a mom and then running at this pace is crazy. I don't know how it's sustainable.
I know working in the music industry in general is just, it can take such a toll. And so I think adding that into the mix of having a family and being a mom and all of that, there has to be this like extreme level of balance. And I worked on that so heavily prior to us even thinking about having kids, to the point where it was like setting boundaries of the time I was going to get off email, being selective with who I gave my cell phone number to. I mean, those were like the little things, especially being in digital, because you're expected to be online and be on your phone all the time. And
Right.
So those were the little things that I felt I could do to kind of set those boundaries to where people knew, like, after 5:30, unless it's an emergency, Shannon's not going to answer. And at first I felt really, really bad doing that. I felt like I wasn't giving enough. And then I thought about it, and I thought about the hours in a day that I got paid for. And I thought about the things that I did with those hours in a day that I knew were above and beyond what was expected of me. And then I didn't feel so bad. And so I think that that helps a lot, just to kind of set those boundaries prior to even thinking about starting a family, so that by the time my daughter came around, it was like a no-brainer, right? I already had those divisions in the day. But it's still so hard. I think it helps a lot that my husband also is in the music industry, because we both know that pace. I think it also helps that we didn't meet each other in the music industry. Like we had 10 years of something established before we both started to work at the same pace. And so I think all of that really helped like lay the foundation, but it's still super active. Like what you're saying, like you still have to consciously make nonstop efforts to separate the two. And both working in the music industry, that can be a thing too, where it's like, hey, like this cannot be our entire day. Like we cannot talk about music and work from the time we wake up until the time we go to sleep. And so there's, the the opposite on that trajectory too, of just like separating the two worlds.
I'm curious how you've rationalized or if you've had any conversations from people. Because when you're salary versus hourly, when you're hourly, it's really easy to say, nope, I'm working 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30. Like those are the hours I get paid for. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're salary in the music industry, songs drop at midnight or 11 p.m. if you're central time like we are.
Mm-hmm.
But they drop in the evening, late at night, or shows or meet and greets or events or all of that, especially digitally when you have to be in charge of announcements or campaigns. How do you create a balance when your job really appears to be outside of normal working hours?
So I think the balance comes from what's necessary to me. So when I get, the weekly schedule and I look at it of what's happening, what do I need to be at, that's really what matters and where I kind of make that separation. So I think it's just a matter of getting out of that FOMO mindset a lot of times, because when you really think about it, there's not a ton of reasons that we have to be at things after hours. A lot of things can happen during hours. A lot of things do happen during hours. And so for me, it was like, do I need to be at this? Or am I just afraid that if I don't attend, I may feel like I'm missing out if I see pictures? Like, it was more of like, do I need to or do I want to? And so I think that's where a lot of it comes down to it. And I think if you plan ahead enough, and kind of strategize enough, you can find ways to not have to be at everything. So I think, at a point you start to realize in this industry, and maybe you also get a little jaded, but it's like, how much do I really need to be at this? Or is everything that I'm doing, am I able to do it without going?
I think that there's so many things that you said that I can relate to. One of my ways of combating FOMO, because I was like you, I was at everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started realizing how much of this is necessary and how much of this is just for the optics that I was there.
Yeah.
And like considered cool enough or high enough on the hierarchy to be there. And
Mm-hmm.
will people even remember that in a week?
Yeah.
And then I also take inventory of how I feel at those events. And then I take inventory of how they're portrayed. And so when I see them portrayed and I'm not there, I remember how I felt. And I just remember, like, I'll think like, man, a lot of it was spent standing around. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of it was spent talking to the same group of people or waiting for one big announcement to be made or whatever. And it was 3 hours of my night. It
Right.
wasn't actually that fun.
Yeah.
know?
I think that's a really good point. And I think everything that you're saying, I think is so important, especially for people who want to get into this industry. I feel like every coffee meeting, every breakfast, every lunch that I did when I first moved to Nashville, was this conversation of networking. That's pretty much all you ever got told if you wanted advice. And I am here to say the opposite. I feel like organic relationships are so much stronger than networking. But I can tell you, all of the relationships I formed from my very first role to current day, that we still talk daily, we still help each other out, we're still nurturing. I mean, you and I are a perfect example. Like, those are organic relationships that occur from, the different jobs that you get, the different people that you meet at certain things that you have to be at, that I feel like are so much more important and so much more crucial to your success in an industry, sure, but just in life as a human being, just to have real relationships. That I almost think those like networking events are, this might be taboo to say, but like I don't think that they're important. I don't think that they're going to further your career. Now, sure, if you just moved to a new city and you want to meet people and you just want those casual coffee hangs to fill in your calendar, like that's the place you'll do it. But in terms of like actually furthering your career, I think we are conditioned to get so stuck on just what you said, how will it look? What are the optics? Do I need to be here? And none of that should be how we're going about being at something. It should be, do I want to be here? Or I can't wait to go to this. And if we're not feeling that way, just in terms of like prioritizing ourselves as human beings, we probably shouldn't go.
I love that because I remember back when we worked together and you, thinking back now, you were really like boundaried with your time, but it didn't feel like you were inaccessible. You were very present at work. It's not like you were in your own world working on your projects because that's the only time you've allotted to work on them. You were very social. We could hear you laughing down the hall, always having conversations, going to lunches. You were present within that time that you've given not only to your work, but to the people that were in that community. And I think that's just a huge key is being present not only with your work, but with your people in the hours that you are given to be there. And you're just super you're very relatable. Your LinkedIn profile, if anybody is guessing me on how relatable Shannon Woodworth is, literally, I think your bio says something about cooking up digital strategies like Monica Geller in the one with all the Thanksgivings. Like everybody gets that reference, whether you're a Friends fan or not, Monica Geller. And so just from the very first beat of somebody just looking you up as a third party, they can tell how relatable you are and how connective you are. So I want to get into that LinkedIn profile a little bit, and I want to hear what's not on there, what is on there, how we even got to the place where your time is in so much demand that we have to create boundaries.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm so glad you got the Friends reference. Believe it or not, there are some people that message me asking what it means. But I'm always here to help. I think, for me, I moved down to Nashville with a master's degree. And it was really difficult to get a job in music entry level with a master's. I kind of felt like that was working against me. I was told by a lot of some of those preliminary interviews that I did that, they couldn't pay me an entry level salary that was worth also having a master's degree.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
Why did you do it to begin with? And where did you go to school? Remind me.
So I went to University of New Haven in Connecticut, and they had a 4+1 program. So if you did 4 years undergrad with them, you could get a 1-year MBA. And I was on track to graduate a year early undergrad. And so I figured if I could do my BA and my MBA all in 4 years, and I would be spending 4 years on college anyway.
Why would you do that?
Yeah. So I wound up doing a 3+1, graduated with my BA in music industry and business management, and then did my MBA for 1 year and had a marketing concentration in that. So I graduated everything 2015 and moved down here right after that. And so that's why I did it. I thought an MBA would always help, and it definitely has been beneficial towards the latter half of my years down here in Nashville. But starting out, it was tough. I think it was just, when you're entry level in the music industry, especially in 2015, it's pennies. Mm-hmm. If that. And so when I was going on interviews saying, and I also have an MBA, and they're looking saying, well, this is what we have allotted for this position, and it's nowhere near what you should be making with an MBA. It was really tough. So I actually, for my first 6 months here, I worked for Gigi's Cupcakes.
So fun. I
Mhm.
mean, so not what you wanted to do, but delicious.
Delicious, wonderful. And the hours actually allowed me to literally pound the pavement of Music Row. I was within walking distance. And so I would work there 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then literally take my physical resumes to the places on Music Row and
Yeah.
apply for jobs.
I hear a lot of people say you don't need a degree at all, a college degree, to be in the music industry. But you took it not only a degree, but then you also got your master's. Do you think your master's is beneficial to have? And if so, or if not, explain. And then a step down, what about a college degree? Do you think that was beneficial?
So I'll start with the college degree. I definitely think that is beneficial to have. There is so much that I learned, especially in my undergraduate music industry classes, that really, really helped me in my first few positions in the industry. Even from the smallest things of knowing how music publishing works, knowing who gets paid for what, knowing royalty structures. I at the time would never have thought that I would have pulled on that information again. And then I'm sitting at, my first internship at Sony ATV Music Publishing, and I'm pulling on all of it and then some. So I definitely think the college degree is still very important. Even from a hiring side, like I just know that, like it or not, that's something that everyone looks at and really takes into account when bringing in people for positions still. The master's portion of it, I think if I didn't have the opportunity that I had to basically not spend any extra money and still get it, I would say, it's not necessary. I think there were a lot of things that I gained from it personally, but that has a lot to do with where I went and my area of focus and then what I wanted to get into. So there even just some connections that I made with some teachers, especially in the marketing division, that like I still keep in touch with them. We still work together at times. That's all, invaluable. But if we're talking about, coming to Nashville or going to New York or going to LA and wanting to just get a job in music, no, I don't think that it's crucial. And I actually think that, like I said, it worked against me a little bit in the beginning.
Would you recommend almost getting that entry level job and then dueling, working full time, and getting your master's so that you can get that pay bump?
So to be 100% with you, I don't think that the music industry compared to other industries actually have a pay bump when it comes to having your master's.
I would agree with that.
I mean, we don't really know what everybody makes in every company and every role, but I have a lot of friends in a lot of different areas and a lot of different spaces. Obviously, we talk about it, and I really don't think that there is a pay benefit in the music industry for having your master's. Now, any other industry, I would say run, don't walk.
Right.
But if you're looking to get into the music industry, I really don't think one that in any entry level position nowadays, I think it'd be very, very difficult to juggle that and getting your master's, especially if you have any other life going on outside of those two things. So if it's something really important to you, then I'd say definitely prioritize getting your master's prior to getting your first position. Knowing that it may be harder to land something, but knowing at least that you'll have the classes out of the way and your degree in hand.
And it never leaves your resume. So maybe you
Right.
take an entry level of what it would be with a BA or a BS and take that job. And then when you're ready to move up to a manager role, negotiate because you have your master's. You don't need to necessarily wait for that pay to jump
Exactly.
in from day one.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. And so I think that's the way to look at it. But I think if it's something that's not important to you, if it's something you never thought about, but you're thinking if you do it, you'll get a pay bump, I would advise against it because I don't think it's going to be what it costs to get your master's and the time that it's worth.
You do digital marketing in a whole lot of different spaces for a whole lot of different industries and products. What are some upcoming trends that you're seeing? I know maybe 4 months ago, Instagram released the DM like status thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would call that a fail. I don't know what you would call that. I think it was a fail. I haven't seen it really enhance anything, but is there anything like that that you're kind of seeing on a certain platform that's starting to bubble up?
So I'll say with the Instagram, the reasoning behind that and the reason they did that is because their algorithm right now relies heavily on DMs. So if anybody is trying to kind of test that, I would advise you to post a story asking for recommendations. Make it easy, make it something that a lot of people would want to respond to, and you'll see if you get 5 to 10 DMs replying to that story, giving you a recommendation to whatever it is you asked for. Your post is going to reach probably double the amount of people than it did the day before.
What? Like your feed post?
Yes. So, like, if you have a post on your feed and you do the message thing and you go and look at the insights, guaranteed it's double the reach compared to the day prior. And that's because the Instagram algorithm right now is showing that if you get intentional messages, so not comments, not engagements on a post, but actual DMs to your page, that you are a priority to those people. And
That
so
makes sense.
that's how the algorithm's working right now. And so the status thing that they put at the top of the DMs is to try and help people combat that. So the idea is that you put something super intriguing and people tap on it and respond to you, and therefore your page starts to do better. That was
Oh.
that was the reason behind it. Now, whether or not it's working is a different story. Um, because even I, like, I'm very involved in the influencer space and in a lot of different group chats with other influencers, and we talk about the different developments and changes on the platform. And no one is really seeing that from it. We're definitely still seeing that, like, if you just post a story for DM responses, it's much more likely that you'll get them as opposed to doing one of those statuses. But that was the intention behind it. Now, in terms of like other things that are really trending, especially on Instagram, I think the comment to message automation. Have you seen any of that?
Yes. So explain the comment to message for people who may not know.
Yes. So the comment to message automation is basically something you can set up on the back end of your Instagram to where if someone comments a word on your post, it will trigger an automatic message from your page to theirs. And so the really cool part about that, especially for influencers, is that, a lot of influencers, we know how the structure works. They make money off of sharing things, whether it's affiliate marketing or whether they're getting paid for a post. And so if they have a link, let's say for Amazon, where every time someone clicks it, they'll get paid if someone actually makes a purchase, they can do a post saying like, comment shop below and I'll send you the link. And then
Oh.
automatically they can have their page send that link to the person. So it feels really personal. The people that actually really want to shop don't have to go searching for the link. It's immediately in their inbox. And it forms that like interpersonal connection, but then it also increases DMs for the creator. So
That's
I
genius.
think, yeah, right now that's really what's moving the needle. There's a company that I worked with recently that's a catering business, and they did that, and it just flew through the roof the amount of people that were visiting their site. So it's a really kind of cool way to like personally connect with your followers in a way that feels organic, but also the creator does not have to take much time setting it up, and the person commenting immediately gets what they're looking for. There doesn't have to be that searching and a lot of different clicks.
Can you have multiple automatic replies depending on what they comment, or do you have to like treat it out almost like an away message?
No, yeah, so you can have multiple. It's basically, I would describe it as like, how on iPhone, if you have shortcuts for texting, so like your shortcut could be OMG, but when you type it, it automatically fills out, oh my gosh. It's just a way to save time. It's kind of like that. So you can have multiple.
That's so cool.
So I'm seeing it pick up a lot.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea that was a thing. Has that been around for a while?
Probably about a month or so. It's newer, but
Cool.
it's really great too for like, if someone is starting out in the music industry, as a way to just like connect with their followers, like, comment new song below and I'll send you a demo, or comment this below and I'll send you a rough chorus that I've been working on and it's typed out. And like, it feels organic, and it's like such a cool way to connect with people.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure the amount of people that reply back to the automatic reply, I mean, probably not a high amount because they know it's automated, but the people who do, I mean, there's an opportunity to build a relationship there and make it organic around this thing and create a relationship. Maybe another songwriter is like, hey, maybe you should do this. And that artist likes it. And now you've collaborated a little bit.
A lot of people too that like, we are in music and technology all the time. But there's a lot of people that just aren't. And, in real time, they think that that's just what's happening. And so, like you're saying, there really is a chance to form these one-on-one organic connections from something that's so easy and so low touch to set up.
You brought up a great point. You said music and technology. That's something that I think in the music industry we could do better at, is staying on top of tech trends, because we can utilize those to our advantage, like what you're describing. Is there any sort of resource that you constantly read or research or watch that helps you stay educated on what's happening?
So I love the Social Standard. If you look them up on LinkedIn, you can actually subscribe to their newsletter right from their LinkedIn page. And I get so much information from them, specifically on just trends that are happening in technology more so than anything else. And then it's really nice that it's not catered to music, because I sort of have this like blank canvas to think about how I could apply it to my career and the artist I'm working with. So I love them. But then also now with broadcast channels on Instagram, joining things like the Meta broadcast channel has been so beneficial, because anytime there's a new update to Instagram, to the platform, to one of the features that are already existing, I get notified about it right away. And so I would say those two things are my main source of, driving information for what's happening both technologically and then on socials.
If you had to kind of rank like most influential to least, how would you rank social platforms for music in general, like for artists?
So TikTok has to still be number one in terms of getting a track exposed to the most amount of people easiest. Now, when I say easiest, I mean the algorithm allows it to reach more people than Instagram Reels. It just does. They just have a different algorithm. The way that it works, it hits more people that aren't just, your current followers. And so you're able to grow quicker in that sense if it catches. So there's a big if there, because
huge if. There's so much content.
Yes, there is so much content. The virality that we used to see with TikTok just doesn't exist anymore for the everyday user.
Right.
A lot of times you'll see if someone just creates a TikTok account, even today, one of their first posts is likely to go viral. They will see suddenly that like their first or second post has 20,000 views and, oh, this is great. And then they'll try time and time again to hit that, and it doesn't happen necessarily. And so that's no accident. TikTok knows, how to kind of hook and sinker their users a little bit. However, if you have a song that just works for the app and it no longer has to be a dance track, it no longer has to be something that can have choreography done to it. It can really be anything as long as the right people start creating content with it. If you have a song that works, number one, it's going to move the needle. Other than that, I would say, Instagram is second. I would say YouTube and YouTube Shorts are moving into a really quick third. They definitely take a little bit longer to grow a base there, but the base is super engaged. So even if a creator, like a lot of times I'm looking at influencers and I'm looking at content creators. If a creator has 500 subscribers on YouTube, it may actually be super beneficial to work with them over a creator that has 15,000 on Instagram, because 15,000 followers likely equates to 200 to 300 engagements, like actual likes and comments on a post. 500 subscribers on YouTube, you're probably looking at 400 comments and engagements. So when you're doing percentage wise, 90% of your YouTube base is going to engage. They get immediate notifications and they're hardcore followers of your brand if they're subscribed to you on YouTube.
I think there's a big psychological thing that happens, and I'd love to see if there's a study on this. For the difference between like engagement, like on Facebook, you like a page, versus follow engagement on Instagram, versus subscribe engagement on YouTube. I wonder if there's a psychological, subconscious way we look at engagement depending on those terms.
Now, are you saying like the weight that the word holds?
Yeah.
Yes, I as you were saying that, I was like, wow, that makes so much sense, because if you think about it in terms of like even just the things that we use in daily life, like if I have a subscription to an app, I'm using that thing because I'm paying for it. Now, a lot of YouTube channels you're not paying for, but you're still subscribing. So it could definitely feel like it has that same weight. I
Like
think
I'm loyal to watching these things, whereas following feels passive. Like if I think like I'm following you, I'm not arm in arm next to you. I'm not with you in it. I'm watching from a distance.
Yeah.
But if I'm subscribing, to your point, like think about all the junk emails you get and you're like, unsubscribe.
Right.
But like if I hit subscribe, I'm making a conscious choice to be annoyed by that thing.
You're so right. And even like, the word like, it seems like a momentary thing. Like, yes, I liked that, and now I'm moving on. It doesn't feel like something you'd come back to again and again. So
right.
I think that you're right. I think those are definitely the top three too. I think TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and in terms of music right now and just, getting things heard, that's the order that I'd put them in.
Well, who would be a good fit for doing digital marketing as a career?
I think it depends on how you look at it. So there are a lot of people who are super passionate about socials, and really passionate about like day-to-day content, whether it's taking really cool photos, editing them in certain apps, coming up with an overall branding aesthetic. A lot of that actually falls in social media marketing. So there's a huge difference between social media marketing and digital marketing.
Oh, can we talk more about that difference?
Yes. So social media marketing is day-to-day acting on the behalf of an artist, a content creator, a brand. So if you're the social media marketing manager for a company, you are the one posting all of their content. You're taking it, you're editing it, you're doing that, you're making content calendars, planning out what's going live day in and day out. So digital marketing is bigger picture. It's coming up with an entire rollout plan for an album release, a song, a season, and just kind of doing the overall scope of what's going to go into that. It's larger campaigns, it's working with external partners and doing sometimes even things that are like, scan a QR code, but it's guerrilla marketing. So it's actually physical things, but it's leading to a digital place. So it's much larger picture kind of things. And a lot of times it connects a physical element to the digital space. So it's figuring out how to get the social page of someone that might be managed by a social media manager, but how to get that exposed to more people, how to get a song out to more people, how to get more listens, more plays, more streams. And so the social media manager is the one that does the day-to-day content for someone or something. And then the digital marketing manager is the one that comes up with a rollout plan for all of that content, how it's going to look, what needs to be shared when, and then how we need to support these larger kind of tent poles that are going to hold up a release or a new product.
So a digital marketer would focus more on ad campaign, ad strategy,
Yes.
and like geo-targeting.
So ad strategy, coming up with what that looks like, who it's going to go to. Geo-targeting a lot of times would be in the hands of an ads manager. So once you kind of come up with the strategy, they may be able to tell you like, hey, out of the last few ad sets we ran, these performed best in this location. So if we're doing something similar, you can really rely on ad strategists a lot for that sort of thing. But it's everything social. It's, what profile pictures need to look like, what banners need to look like, but then social media manager is the one uploading them. It's
so cool. I didn't know there was a difference.
Yeah, so it's a lot of larger strategies. So I think back to your original question of who would be good for it, I think you have to really think big picture to do digital marketing. You have to be able to see what the end result needs to look like and then work backwards versus a social media marketing, you're just focused on the present and what's being put in front of you and what needs to happen that week, what needs to go out. But from a digital marketing perspective, you need to kind of plan that 3 months out and then work backwards. And so a lot of times it's, highly strategic, really organized. And I say this as a type A person, but I do think that being type A helps a lot because you can kind of think methodically about what needs to fit in where to meet that end goal. But I think the biggest thing is something that not a lot of people might say, but being empathetic. I think that so much of what I do on the day to day in the digital marketing space is thinking about how people are going to react. So, whatever that fan or that follower is like, I'm trying to give them content or a campaign that they're going to relate to. Back to relatability. Give them something that they're going to be able to connect with. And a lot of times that's just watching and listening and reading comments and seeing the temperature or the climate that a certain page or following has, and then being in tune with that enough to make sure that whatever campaign I'm running meets that. So it's a lot of sociological elements, at least for me, in the way that I do digital marketing.
I would have never guessed that, but it makes complete sense. You have to get into the shoes of who you're trying to get the attention of so that you can adequately get that attention. I think there are a lot of people who are maybe hearing those suggestions on who would be good at this, and they're like, oh, that's me. I would love that. But I don't really know how to get a job in it, but I'm really good at it. I've successfully built my own influencer brand. What are some things if they want to do it freelance? What are some things that they must know and that they must offer?
I think you must know the current trends around all of the platforms, not just the platforms that a potential client is on. So if a client comes to you and they want help with their Instagram, I think it only benefits both of you if you help them also create a Facebook page, also get on TikTok, start syndicating their content to Snapchat stories and YouTube shorts. So being in pace with everything, and the social climate is ever changing and it can be frustrating at times, but like learning all of that and knowing what goes into each and every platform. And then also, being able to kind of like what we just talked about, but like relate to someone and their needs. So I think you have to be really adaptable, especially if you want to do freelance, to find some way of connecting with any sort of client. So just kind of like really immersifying yourself in whatever world you're ready to help, because you're going to be that voice for them, and you're going to be planning out, especially if you're doing freelance, then you are going to be the digital marketing manager and the social media manager. So getting really connected with them and their needs, I think, is super important.
We've talked a lot about all the ventures that you have. And if somebody wants to see a comprehensive list, they can go to your LinkedIn. But I'm curious, we've talked about the boundaries. We've talked about balancing a long-time life partnership. We've talked about balancing all of these things and having the boundaries with your phone, being in a digital space. Do you believe that you're living the dream?
I believe that I'm living my dream. So I think the dream is different for everyone. And so I think that whatever makes you happiest is a step towards achieving your ultimate dreams. And that's where I'm at. I think my entire life, from the time I started dating my husband, I knew that I wanted to be a mom. And so now that I am a mom, yes, that's the most important thing to me. My daughter is my entire world. And I was just talking about this with my husband, but like, I always lived this extroverted life where it was like I was always making plans. I always had something on the calendar. If I was doing like my whiteboard calendar in my kitchen and there was a space on a day, I looked to fill it. And now those spaces are some of my most sacred time. And I love leaving them there because it means I'm spending time with my husband and my daughter. And that's my biggest priority. And so for me, that is living my dream, being able to still balance my job and do my job well, meet a lot of people and serve a lot of people. That's incredible. But coming home from that and having my weekends away from that are some of my most cherished times now. And so that's what feels like my dream.
And I think you're doing it really gracefully. Like your heart, your character, your empathy, your passion, your creativity, your organization, all of that is really hard to find in one person. And so I'm grateful that I had a season to work with you and work with such a person. And I'm really, really, really excited that our listeners get to know you on this episode. So thank you.
Thank you. You're the best. And I love talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Springboard Music Podcast. If there's something that resonated with you in this episode, or an episode that you would like for us to create in the future, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at Springboard Music on Instagram.